This is another section from the Work in Progress New Year's Eve 2016. So I was in the stone circle at Glasto, he begins, pretty well flying, sitting cross-legged in my Zen phase, all oneness, a cliched piece with my dying, looking out across those sacred fields. The unnumbered campfires arrayed in Homeric, lysergic splendour before me. This was the year I paid, incidentally, the year after the fence went up. And the multivarious smokes wending their ways out to the farthest reaches of the globe. I'd been intending to get to Radiohead at least, but, well, I was there in 97, so... Anyway, I just stayed there, absorbing it all, thinking that if there's a heaven, it must look like Worthy Farm on a given weekend in June, but without the chavs, obvs. When across from me this chick starts picking out a tune on this tattered, battered old taped-up guitar. You should have seen this thing. It was derelict, man. Real rag and bone stuff. But my God, she made it sing like its strings were the sinews of sirens, like every strum was a cherub's birth cry, each slap sonorous as Nintu's drum. Don't you just love Gilgamesh, though? It's so relevant, so very now. There were the usual bongos there, ovs, but one by one, as they heard how the music flowed from her like oral nectar, like incense for the ears, they ceased, and all that chatter fell away. She started off with Tears for Fears, and made that Lord cover, which I like, sound like a cat trapped in a mangle, then flowed right into a teardrop that would have made Newton Faulkner strangle himself with his own dreads and hopeless envy. And then a Nothing Compares to You just to get Sinead tearing her hair out. Hey, Tobes, you old Menshevik, do me a favour and grab that mezcal while the worm's still in it. And I'm there, enchanted, incredulous. Yes, Chief, just give me one more minute. And gawping like a child at his first fireworks at this fantastic performance, feeling suddenly not Zen at all, but Dionysian, orgiastic as each perfect note penetrated me, feeling these phenomenal full-body waves, cerebral, myocardial, abdominal, whatevs, just every piece of me pierced and shaking, surging through me, trembling me into something truly transcendent. And I know I'm giving it the full halloumi here, but bear with. And I honestly felt like I was about to explode, and I didn't care, but there was just enough of me left of me to see her there, to peer between the shadows writhing round her playing, past her hippyish, fraying, fading florid dress and her lank hair, greying yet a symphony of colours, to her ageing, ever-youthful face, engraved with the hardest living, yet fair and full of grace. And just before I drowned in the dazzle, I recognised her. I saw who it was whose music had so mesmerised me. It was Janis, man. Janis Joplin. She was there in 03 in the circle playing covers. And Natch, you don't believe me, no one does, but I swear on Atahualpa's ashes it was her. Yes, Chief, I'm coming now, save me a couple. See ya. And he's gone with his wind, off to play his wormy game. And if scepticism had a face, we'd all look the same round the dining table. And a big bass chuckle breaks out, and soon we're all in jolly pieces I'll be glad to tell my friends about. But then, when the quake subsides, a hush, a lull. After the laughter, a quietude in which to muse and mull the prospect of the possibility that he's not lying. Until, up from the corner, voice gentle as a fairy sighing, speaks a girl with auburn tresses and a smile upon her lips like dawn itself, caressing her with rosy fingertips. I had at Glastonbury my own epiphany, my own transforming, full-bodied, dazzling polyphony, but not at the festival, on the solstice, up on the tor. I reached the top after midnight. I had not been before, and did not expect the multitudes, nor the unalloyed amity with which, garlanded with happiness, they welcomed me. And in the witching hours all played with spirits, all was mirth, as overhead in heavens beckoned by this ever-turning earth came the first gleamings of the longest day. All mustered there began to take their places on the eastern slope, all clustered where that cherished orb would kiss them first. And as the spectrum shifted from sacrificial crimson to a promissory orange, I was uplifted, and then laid down in tenderness upon that isle of grass. And tasting in each breath, and in the elixir in my crystal glass, an old ancestral sweetness, an elementary essence, and quickly a delirious pleasure, a trembling not in the presence of ancient gods, but in the ancients of their worship, the renewal of primal impulses through rites as old as every season, the accrual year upon decade upon century, in gatherings concatenate of folk whose faces and fashions change with the date, of heartbeats in remembered rhythm older than the hills they pulse upon. There, prostrate before the dawn, by the topmost tower of Avalon, in the company of strange new friends I was revitalized. All of us enjoyed communion with times past and yet unrealized. And as the first rays of the sunrise flew to us across the waking land, we bound together just as golden atoms, and with one raised hand spun of them threads with which to weave the richest tapestries, ropes with which to save our lives, on which to hang our hopes when all our towers tumble. There we lay, for hours and epochs, ascendant as the solstice sun above the Mendips and the Quantocks, beatific as the bards and druids and day trippers circumscribed the sudden and eternal locus of our fellowship, as we imbibed honeymead and discount vodka and the water of the chalice well, all our chaotic wanderings aligned, our theirs and thens in predetermined parallel, tapping toes and slapping thighs and nodding heads synchronous with the sound, resonant within St. Michael's remnants with the cosmic background, of djembe and junjun, of flute and lute and countless mouths in celebration, the vibrations and ululations of an annual, organic renovation. There we lay until the after-zenith, new creations from old clay baking in heat billions of years and 8 minutes in the making, deliquescing into drops of time, spilling like fresh springs down upon Somerset, basking like Devonian bugs unfurling the first wings. There we lay, limbs and lives entwined, until the ending of that ageless moment, and one by one from all we went, paths once converged, now once again divergent, but all our solitary ways now ever onwards lit by that shared sun, and each thence dressed forever in robes woven from the golden thread we'd spun. And as I left, one final gift, one last ephemeral, indelible delight, as if to awe all deities with one supremely human rite, out from within that perfect ruin, bathing an archangel's scars, through speakers made in China and through air forged in the cores of unknown stars, came Allegri's Miserere. And there, mute witness to that sublimity, that miraculous matrimony of light and music, that unique unity of voice and place, I found myself at peace. And now I know I'll have that ever after. She falls silent, but the glow of that far-off and ever-present solstice lights her still, and I look at her, a stellar force behind her smile, an unhorizoned will. And a man could fall into that body, I think, though I should not, and I look away as if at once intrigued by the John Lewis polka-dot tablecloth in all its aspirational pomp. And as the guy next to me engages her with a truly welding anecdote about getting high in Varanasi, I say my short goodbyes and rise to make a drink from the cornucopia of booze in the cupboard beside the sink. And thinking that Richard Whiting too had his day upon the tour, I leave this little Glastonbury and head for London down the corridor.